Let's do it. Alrighty, here we go. My name is Marty Fox from WHITEFOX. Now, here's the deal.
Welcome back to another episode of With the Fox. Shura Taff with you. I'm joined, as I am every time, by Marty Fox, CEO, founder of WHITEFOX, and he's looking very relaxed as he's heading to New York shortly. And I'm excited, firstly, to be with you, obviously, but also for our guest today because, firstly, I know you guys have a lot in common, the way you think, the way you see brand and messaging, but also because, like a lot of the guests we've had, we've got another incredible woman who's done amazing things in the business space, and we want to unpack exactly how she's done that. Jess Hatzis Walker, nice to have you with us. I would have had to add the Walker at the end there. I know online, the Walker's not everywhere.
I forget a lot, to be honest. It's really hard to learn a new name.
Don't say that.
I love my husband, but I had my name for 34 years and then all of a sudden you have a new one.
And what are the kids?
They're Walker.
They're Walker.
I didn't want to make life difficult for them. I'm already 5 names. I sound like I should have like the third at the end of my name, like I come from royalty or something.
We did the opposite. So my wife has her name, but our kids have the double barrel,
name,
the hyphen.
And past client.
Yes.
From early WHITEFOX days.
Well, wait for this. So we have weird connections with our guests, correct? Would you say that? We've had
all the time.
Matt Rockman from Seek lived in my house randomly. We've had Nick Russian, who, you know, you knew, I knew, just whatever. Jess, we've got a lot of connections.
We do.
Obviously through Marty and selling your house. But me personally, your husband not only trained me, but also my wife.
Yep.
as a personal trainer, and lots of mutual friends. And we'll delve into the story shortly, but even with how Frank started, like I knew a lot of the Coin Laundry boys and girls and all that sort of stuff. So it's an amazing story.
Founder of Frank Body.
Yes, so exactly. Just to set the scene. So we started with Willow and Blake, one of the great copywriting agencies, you know, in Australia.
Thanks,
in terms
guys.
of what you guys have done. And then founder
And
of,
from the beginning of WHITEFOX days with Aidan Hathaway.
We'll talk that
Aidan,
connection.
Brilliant writer, yes.
We'll talk that connection. And then, of course, co-founder of Frank Body, which has just become something else in itself. And now heading to some new areas as well, which we might dive into at the end. You said there's a lot happening for you. But let's start from the start. Like you are obviously a very creative individual. Tell us about how you got into the creative realm. You know, what was your journey from school? And we'll get to Willow Blake in a second, but between school and that.
We're going right back. All right. So picture me, more freckly, braces. It was not a good time. I'm a writer through and through. It's what I've always done.
Even as a little kid.
Even as a little kid. I was writing like political satire when I was 14 years old. Like I just was drawn to it. I was reading all the time. And I've told this story before, but I had a meeting with my careers counsellor. You know how you do that sort of year 9, year 10 in preparation of choosing your VCE subjects. And she just flat out told me there are no careers in writing. You need to choose something else. And she went on to...
That annoys me so much.
To kill someone's dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so limiting.
And I've just gone through this with Freddie recently, which we can talk about as well. Yeah, not good.
He's so
7.
tiny.
He's 7. Anyway, please.
So she went on to then propose. We had to do an assignment on our during career, and she went on to propose that I partner up with her son, who was in the Navy or the Army, and I could potentially learn about a career in there. And
In the Navy?
In the Navy. And I didn't even have so much as a demerit point to my name. I was the least confrontational person ever, yet somehow she thought, perfect candidate for weaponized battle. Like this makes total sense.
For the armed forces.
Armed forces, off we go. And it really derailed me for a good 5 or 6 years of my life. I went off, I chose all the wrong subjects at uni. So instead of doing humanities, I forced myself into sciences and maths. I went on to do arts comm at uni, and I was lost, like failing subjects. I even went on gap years. I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
And how old were you at this point?
Like late teens, early 20s. And I started a blog, and a lot of my life stories end up with me starting a blog or finding a place to just organically write.
Sorry, this is 2000.
I want to say I finished high school in 2003.
Yeah.
Giving away my age. I would have been, say, 2009 ish at this point. Maybe 2008.
What are you blogging on?
Music. I loved it.
No, sorry, what platform?
WordPress. Created my own WordPress site. This is really back in the day. There was no social media. Maybe we had MySpace at that time.
And readership numbers?
I don't even remember, but it definitely got around because I ended up getting my first job offer because of that blog. So I was studying my master's at uni, and I got a phone call from a friend of a friend who said, I'm working at Grant Smiley's new music agency.
Grant Smiley.
Again, giving away my
He's
age.
definitely like another future guest.
We have to get Grant
Absolutely.
on. 'Cause
There's
he's
too many
like-
mutual
Yeah,
He,
connections.
he was just a DJ, then he's got restaurants, hospitality, LA, like amazing.
He'd be perfect.
Now he's doing business with Crown.
He is. Marmont. Looks very cool. I started doing some freelance copywriting work for them and then decided to leave my master's and go and take this job, which was a bit of a all-rounder. I was doing some copywriting, some PR, some travel logistics.
Bit of creative in there.
Bit of creative. I knew I just wanted to work around these people and I thought my degree will be there. If I want to go back and finish my master's, I can. This opportunity to work with these people who I grew up in the western suburbs. I didn't go to a fancy school. I didn't have a huge network. That wasn't a privilege that I grew up with. I had to build my own network as an adult. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me.
Hey, we're in the West.
Are you in the West now?
That's great. No. As in, like, where in the West did you grow up?
Where in the West? I
Yeah,
thought you said
yeah.
we are in the West. Altona and Williamstown.
All right. So my dad went to Altona Tech.
Get out. Yeah.
And then we were living in, Maribyrnong, Footscray.
Yep. All right. So I didn't know
So
you
doggy
had the West
supporter.
connection. Collingwood. I know.
Come on.
My mum was a dog supporter and then, she switched teams. I took that job and I worked there I'd been working at Red Bull at the same time while I was at uni. And that was how I met Erica and Bree, who were going to be my co-founders at Willow Blake, who were also writers. They were writing their own blogs. We were working for young entrepreneurs all together at the same time.
And you all met at Rebel.
We all met at Red Bull.
So, Red Bull.
Red Bull. Yeah.
As
all
mobile-
riders.
Were you
All
mobile
riders.
And all similar
energizers?
age.
All similar age. They would tend to really attract people who were marketing creative types because we were intrinsically interested in
Brands.
profiling and brand. It was the best training ground for marketing I've ever had. I learned more on the ground in 2 years at Red Bull than I did in 6 years of university.
And we just had this with our
We had
previous
Julia
guest.
Margett on, who
Yeah.
was one of the first, and
Yeah.
ended up working in crisis management for some huge brands.
And now they own Coca-Cola.
Yes, okay.
So she was amazing last week.
incredible. But the point is that Red Bull, such a strong brand, taught a lot of things about how to position your brand, right?
Well, Red Bull gave the vision of what you could do.
Absolutely. And how to position the same can in 10 different ways to 10 different people. So that customer segmentation piece was no longer just theory to me. I was doing it, living it and breathing it every single day for my job.
And did Bree, Airy and yourself just all click?
We clicked like straight away. We all started living together. We had 2 apartments across the road from each other. And when we weren't at work, we were just sitting in front of our computers, like the big chunky MacBooks back in the day, writing. And we loved it. And we started to formulate this idea about bringing our respective blogs together. And then we did that. We won a competition to have our website built. And that's how Willow and Blake was born. It started as a blog. So everything
And then you won a
had-
competition.
Yeah, so we were poor writers and students. We had no money. To build a website was just
Like
something
50
that
would have
was
been
going-
50, 60 grand at the time.
And we would not have had that. We would have taken years to save that kind of money. We were living out of home. We have amazing families, but they were not the type of families financing our projects. So everything was independently built. If it hadn't been for writing that music blog, I wouldn't have got my first job, which taught me everything I knew about being a young entrepreneur. And I loved working with Grant and Pete, but I realised one day that I didn't want to work for them anymore. I wanted to be them. And I had not until that point even considered being an entrepreneur or starting my own business because I wasn't exposed to it where I grew up. Being a 39-year-old woman, there were not a lot of archetypes for me to say, oh yeah, women can be leaders in business. So that was a real aha moment that I had. And we started writing Willow and Blake, the blog, and freelance inquiries started coming in because we developed this great reputation in market for someone who was just writing content that was really different and unedited in a way that wasn't commercial.
And for those that are listening that don't understand the importance of tone of voice, like what I do, life-changing.
Yep.
The tone of voice of your brand is essentially your brand's identity before you see anything.
Absolutely. How you sound?
How did you market that from the very beginning? Like, who was your first client that you were able to then do an amazing job for, leverage, open networks? How did that start?
It was fate. So we started our business and it was, 3 young girls. We were 23 years old, 24 years old maybe. We knew how to write. We didn't really know how to run a business, if I'm honest. We sat there like in our pajamas going, how the do
What
we
do we
do
do now?
this? Like, what do we do? We started
Do you
emailing
remember
everyone
like
we
forming
know.
the company and
It was-
getting
Yeah, I remember
registered
lying on Ari's bed, like on our
my
tummies,
God.
like we were having the slumber party.
on the asset register, like just getting it all done?
Do,
Yeah,
what
what's
do we
Willow
do?
and Blake out of curiosity? The name, like where did it come from?
Where did the name come from?
Yeah.
It was originally called Tres Quills, which is a terrible name.
Oh, 3 quills, yeah.
We knew that there would be bias against us as young women because we'd already faced it in our careers, which is really sad to say. At such a young age, we'd already had people question our work and say really sexist things to us. We wanted to create a bit more of an androgynous identity for the company. We liked the idea that Willow and Blake represented a human, but not necessarily one that you could identify. So it was that idea. We wanted it to just sort of be bigger than us. We didn't want it to be Jess, Bree and Ari.
How did you land on Willow and Blake though?
It was actually a name that Ari was working on for another client who was a wedding or a bridal company, and we would work together on our client work for our respective jobs together at home. And we loved this name. We were all sort of like pitching in ideas.
It's not masculine,
together.
It's not feminine. It's like,
Well, both can be either, can't
Yeah,
they? Blake
absolutely.
can be a
Soft and
male or a
hard.
female name.
yeah.
Yeah, we liked it. And it was always, we knew we would grow this thing into something bigger than us and there would be more people involved. So it could kind of represent all these different archetypes of a person. The voice was always really irreverent, cheeky, bold.
So
didn't give
cheeky.
a fuck. That was basically us. Sorry, can I swear on here? Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Didn't expect to come out, but
No,
fantastic.
okay.
Love it.
It was just who we were. It was so, copywriting and advertising had been a very stuffy space, really dominated by the old guard. And we could see digital and social media were on the horizon. So to get back to your original question, which was who was our first client, we probably all know this person. Christian Klein called us up.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Said, I've ordered 20,000 pairs of
Jellies.
shoes.
That's right.
We need a brand. Can you help me sell them? And we thought, sure, we can do that. So we created the brand strategy, the tone of voice, the social content. There was no Instagram yet. Everything was using Facebook pages.
For the little
Little plastic
Those
shoes.
jellies. Plastic
little
shoes.
jelly
Bean sandals. And over the course of a couple of months, we helped him successfully sell all 20,000 pairs of shoes. And that became our first case study because we just knew how to create a voice and a social and content strategy that was part of the cultural zeitgeist at the time.
Did you lean
before
into
social was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before it was anything.
But
also-
free.
Was there influencers?
They weren't even called influencers
What were
then.
they called?
They were bloggers or key opinion leaders. The word
Bloggers.
influencer hadn't even been developed.
But so also it was a product that kind of was nostalgic for people. So
Absolutely.
you had this story of like, and which is now, you look at how much stuff is nostalgia, right? We lean into like all the old movies are coming back, Transformers. And
Mate, it's nostalgic because we're getting old.
Because we're
No,
old.
no, I understand that. But when this was happening, they were talking 15 years ago, jellies, for most people who were in their 20s, it was what they wore when they were 7,
Yeah.
right? And then they just went boom again.
And they were back. And it was fun to feel childlike
Yeah.
and carefree.
Look at Crocs. I mean, we laughed at
And
Crocs
those Jibbit
for
things
years.
that are everywhere.
And now
Yeah.
they're like, all our kids want them.
I know. So that was what launched Willow and Blake off the ground, and that became a case study. We started attracting all these clients who wanted other brand and social content strategies, and we were doing that for a few years.
Out of interest, who was the first international brand that reached out or national? Like,
That's a really good question. We did a lot of white labeling. So there were heaps of agencies that didn't do their own work and they would outsource to us. So there was like airlines and banks that I was doing when I was sort of 25 years old. Big national brands.
And they had no idea that
but
you were
they had
doing
no
it,
idea
yeah.
that we were doing it. I probably
Amazing.
won't
and then
out
their
those
internal teams were
agencies.
taking the credit.
And taking the credit and taking all the cash too. Yeah. When I look back at what we charged people back in the day. Then we started doing work for like startup brands that then would go on to be worth $500 million, like Briogeo and Modi Body. And there are a lot of female consumer brands like hair care and period care and all that sort of stuff. Bondi Sands. We did all of their tone of voice and
We
social
chatting to
strategy.
Sean in a few weeks.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
Sean is
we'll
coming
tell
up.
him the Willow girls say hi.
Of course.
So we really carved out a niche for ourselves in the startup consumer brand community. We'd done work in a lot of other sectors like finance, real estate, nothing like yours until you came along. It was all the old fuddy-duddies that wouldn't let us change anything about what was going on in real estate.
I said you could change everything.
Yeah, you did. That's why the
We're gonna
brand was
touch
so
on that. We're
amazing.
gonna
I mean,
get
that
to
was
that
all
in a second.
alienating, the work that they did for you. But it was the whole agency was quite invested in that project because we really loved where they were pushing the brand. I remember lots of sessions with them having it all up on their screens and everyone sitting around the computer going, yeah, that's the one. We knew it before they even showed you. Can't remember how many concepts they did, like 3 or 5. And we knew the deal was going to be it before you even saw it. And you knew it as soon as you
So I
saw
saw
it too.
the deal.
Yeah.
The others didn't get a look in.
That. And you have to. It's the due diligence process you need to go through to create all of those different paths for a brand's potential, I guess, inception or coming to life. But you know it.
But we own a phrase now. And now it's amazing. Like when you saw Joe Biden, running for the re-election, saying a lot of the time, now here's the deal, I would get sent his videos 100 times a week. Like just people from all over going,
just associate it with you.
Just associate us with the deal.
Yep. You and Aidan did brilliant work on that. So that was kind of where Willow and Blake got to, and then we started to get into the Frank Body story, which is
coming. Just on that white labeling stuff, how much of that are you allowed to show? If you're not actually representing the client, they don't know that. Are you allowed to outwardly show the work that you've done to other clients? How does that work?
Back in the day, we didn't really argue enough for ourselves to be able to show that. So we were doing all of this fantastic work, and we did it because we wanted experience and we also needed to get paid. We were a small agency. We had bills to pay.
And you're young and you don't understand like, well, if we say something, like if you look back on any beginning of a career, there's so many things that you wouldn't do again, and there's so many things that you would leverage at the time. But because you're young in business, you don't understand what you can and can't get away with. So you haven't cracked the code on how it all works.
That's exactly right. And you're scared that you're going to lose an opportunity by voicing your opinion.
Yeah. Well, you're scared of potential bullying.
Yeah.
Which happens in every industry. And more so with very young girls. Like it's scary.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, you know what? We're not going to pay you, and you know what? We'll tell everyone not to work with you. Boom, and then you're in trouble, right?
Exactly. Then you're blacklisted. So we couldn't share a lot of that work. So then it was the other stuff that we were doing for really cheap, absolutely no fees at all, just to build our folio. And we held ourselves to a certain code of ethics. We did not believe in taking the work that we'd done for our prior agencies and building a folio of that for ourselves, because that was the work I did when I was employed by you. And I've always felt very strongly about that. I still believe that to be true now. So for us, it was standing on our own 2 feet, creating a folio of work that was Willow and Blake, and then going out there and marketing ourselves based around that.
I remember your office back in the day in Cremorne.
Yeah.
Loved it. When did you land on getting your own space? Like when did it go from being, 3 girls, starting the business, running a few jobs, to then securing a lease and going, holy shit, we've got a fully fledged company now?
Before you came to that office, we had this really dodgy space out the back of Revolver that had no heating. We would have to bring blankets
in the lane?
in the laneway behind the car park. That eventually became Frank's packing space because we knew it was cheap and it was perfect for that. So we hated it so much because it was so cold and we're sitting there just teeth chattering away trying to type. We came across a space in Cremorne that was really quite cheap at the time because this was before Cremorne became cool. It was still factories and warehouses.
Was Top Paddock there yet?
No. Top Paddock maybe happened to coincide with the opening, like maybe 6 months after we moved into the area, and we thought finally there's somewhere to go and get coffee.
Wow.
It was a great little nook for creative businesses because the rent was really cheap. Now it's just absolutely astronomical.
Yeah.
We knew to be taken seriously against some of the competitors in the space that we had to go out on a limb and get a lease. It was just that we did it in the most affordable way we could, and we positioned it as cool and edgy.
It's the optics though. Come to my office. Come and sit down in the boardroom it.
Don't come to my bedroom and sit at my kitchen.
Yeah, or come shiver at the back of Revolver.
Exactly. Not quite the same.
Were you ever turning work away out of curiosity? Were there brands you were like, oh, I don't think we can do this for you, or everything came in was actioned?
We didn't back then because we were scared of missing any opportunity. You always feel like that someone's going to turn the tap off when you're starting a business. Now we absolutely do.
Yes.
If I don't believe that I can do the best job for the client, if I don't believe in the client's intentions, if we're not value aligned, there's so many reasons that we wouldn't work with someone now.
And also the fear of the client not sticking to the plan.
Oh,
that's a
hell,
huge
that's my
one.
life.
It's like, can you actually carry through what we're providing you? Because if you don't and you make alterations, which they're within their rights to do as the owners of their companies, that can reflect poorly on Willow and Blake. Like you need the trust equity of that founder or business owner actually listening. That's pretty hard.
It's really hard to cultivate that level of authority when you're really young too, to make someone have so much trust in you. I think that comes with time and expertise when you really learn how to sell in a strategy and an idea. And that would happen time and time again. In the early days, we'd have people come to us. We would do the risky and bold idea. They would water it down. It wouldn't work. They'd blame us, so on and so forth.
Can I give you an example?
Go for it.
Doing the videos, opening it with now, here's the deal.
Yeah.
After 15 or 20 of them, I would start having the piss taken out of me. other agents, whether it be jealousy, not getting eyeballs, wherever it might be, thinking that I was just being a dickhead, I did not let them break me. Or when we'd be in a $3 million listing, baby 6 months old, 3 mortgages, wages to be paid, and the vendor says, I'll give you the listing, but you can't put the deal on the board. I would grab my stuff and I would leave that house and leave $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 of commission on the table. I never broke because I stuck to that strategy so through and through that I knew that over time it would stop being asked.
Absolutely.
Or the black and white photo. Like there's so many elements to your identity as a brand that if you let a few outliers change your vision, then you don't have anything. You do not have brand pillars.
Yeah, and you can't create brand equity without them. Then you can't become memorable. And without being memorable and having equity, there is no brand awareness. And so then it's just this snowballing effect.
But you have to be prepared to leave. You have to be prepared to not take money and back the long-term vision of what your brand could be.
Yeah.
So let's dive into this. Now you're in a safe space, Jess. Tell me honestly, your first memory of this man walking in your door with a vision for his brand. Where does it sit?
I remember I wasn't in the meeting, which now I'm really regretful because I remember watching it from the outside thinking.
It was up on like this voided area.
Yeah, you're up the spiral staircase and you weren't even in the boardroom. I think you were sitting at like our little desk. We used to call that the Vagina Club. That was where myself and Brent, Eri sat.
Great club.
Yeah.
I remember there was really mixed opinions in the agency about the outcome of that meeting, not because there was doubt around what you could do, but because we had spent, maybe not Aiden, but the three of us had spent so much time working with real estate agents who didn't want to do anything different. And there's a lot of talk in your industry and not a lot of follow through from people. Like essentially at the end of the day, there's a lot of salespeople who want to try and sell you the dream and then not actually give it to you.
And you've got a mid-20s guy who's confident with his ideas, but you might be thinking, is it all bluster? Is he going to be able to do it? The industry's going to push back. There's lots of things that could eventually.
Well, it was one of those ones which it sort of had to be done on the side because of the risk, in a way.
Yeah, and I remember developing the voice. Eri and Aiden led that project, and I remember all of us inputting into what was eventually the concept for the deal, and feeling really excited about the matter-of-factness of that tone of voice.
Well, bold, polished,
matter of fact. I remember still.
Well, we had Aiden on the podcast. Aiden ran through what his point of view on it, but as the business owner, Aiden works for you.
But those pillars are now part of hiring. Like if the person's not bold, polished, matter of fact, they don't really get the job because they could be really bold, but they're not matter of fact, which means that they're full of hot air and they don't get the job. Like it's such an important.
It's embedded.
It's like the skeleton.
It really is. And if you can't rattle those values off quickly and succinctly, then they're not the values of the brand.
100%.
That's a bullshit piece of paper you spent $10,000 writing that lives in the bottom of a dusty cupboard.
Oh, probably not $10,000 anymore.
No, not anymore.
It was.
It was back then. Inflation, guys. Don't blame me.
But so Aiden leads it. You come up with this idea. You're pretty comfortable with the look and feel. I know, and he's loving it. Internally, you're like, all right, this could be really something game changing.
Well, after the first 12 months, that first 12 months was crazy.
It was absolutely nuts, wasn't it? And I mean, I believed in you a lot. There's a reason that very soon after that, I came to you to sell my house because I trusted what you were doing. I liked your vision. I liked the refreshing perspective that you brought to what was quite a traditional and dusty industry. I liked the no bullshit approach that you took to everything and still do, and that you treated me with respect. That didn't always happen. Like I had people in this space ask me if my dad bought my house for me. There's that level of assumption around, well, how could a young woman buy this home? And you never made stupid assumptions like that. Like you'd always treat everyone that you engaged with the respect that they deserved. So that came through even beyond your vision for how big you wanted to grow it. It was that I felt like we're always on an equal playing field, and that was really refreshing.
I'm raised by strong women, so for me, I just don't understand.
The gender doesn't matter. The quality.
No, I just don't understand how people don't see that as that's how you need to live your life.
Yeah.
Like, everything's equal.
I know. Unfortunately, not everyone is raised by strong women and grow up in an environment where those kind of values aren't part and parcel of their day to day. Yeah, it's a sad world we live in, but that's our responsibility as the next
what are we
generation
now?
of parents.
We're probably 50, 55% women across the entire
Definitely
company,
above half.
120 odd people.
And just
in
makes
real
sense.
estate.
Well, we know categorically women are the decision makers in most households when it comes to every purchasing decision, from the smallest to the biggest, even though that there's discrepancies in earnings and all that sort of stuff, that the woman plays such a crucial role in that decision-making process. So to not market to her, to not angle things towards her is just leaving money on the table. It's smart business at the end of the day to do it that way too. Not only that, but obviously to give women the equal seat at the table.
That's why we didn't want a very masculine brand. We want it to be, a really aesthetic, feminine brand that appeals to the people that are making the decisions.
And
it's not deep navy blue. It's not dark black. It's a really light, friendly luxury brand. That was the brief.
It doesn't feel like an old boys club.
No, how do you be luxury without being stuffy and super masculine?
But has it amazed you? You've worked with a lot of clients over many years. How closely White Fox is stuck to the original? Like it's pretty much the same. Not
It's
much.
exactly
has
the
changed.
same.
We've done it.
Curved signboards is really.
I remember seeing that change and go, that's the first big change I've seen you make in nearly a decade.
And it nearly threw me off my chair because we were out for dinner with Charlotte and she just randomly goes, I don't like the boards. And I just went, what are you talking about? Like, they're fucking amazing. You can't change. Like, everyone loved our boards. Everyone's copying the boards. And I remember she got the waiter, got a little napkin and drew this arch with a window. And I looked at her and I went, surely not. This is unbelievable. And she goes, yeah, it's the window into the property.
The best ideas happen on a napkin
I remember the meeting when Aiden took that, ran with it, and then we pitched it to all the agents and we sat there, he put it up on the screen, everyone went, like, because it just hadn't been
And we
done.
trademarked it. So we patented an arched board
I didn't know that.
in real estate.
Love it.
And then it got really technical. So you can't get that. So we put little legs on the bottom and then we could get
we
it. Like
could,
it's quite fascinating to get a patent, how technical
But that's
you
the
have
only
to be.
change.
Yeah, it
You
is.
look at it, you would look at the first, I reckon if we dug out that first
I have it.
thing, well, you've got it, it would be so true to what the brand is today.
Oh,
is.
absolutely. You've stuck to your guns because you knew what you wanted from day one. And that's where I see a lot of clients go wrong. They're in it for the wrong reasons. Often they're trying to make a quick buck rather than grow something meaningful and value aligned. And when you don't have that value alignment, then you kind of get swayed by anything going on in the market and other people's opinions.
Sometimes you can speak too big and you don't get taken seriously.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to be national, but at that point in time, I knew I wanted to be global. But if I had said it, anyone would have thought that I was crazy.
Yeah.
So now when people say White Fox Dubai and White Fox London and White Fox here, that all stems from the work done in 2016.
Yep.
Anyway, enough about White Fox and me.
Yeah.
Let's go back to, so you're in Revolver, you then have Frank Body that takes your lease. Now, to give anyone that doesn't understand Frank Body, where Frank Body is now, and then take us back to how did that just get off the ground?
That came about as 5 people, 3 of us, the founders of Willow Blake, and 2 our partners at the time, now 1 husband. We knew we wanted to do something in consumer brands. Everything that we were doing was limited by hours. It was all professional services. We couldn't scale it beyond the time we had available without it becoming just bodies everywhere. And we didn't want to do that.
And you were also helping clients with their brands. You're like, we want a brand.
Christian's just sold 20,000 of these. You're like, we can do that. Why can't we?
that.
Yeah.
It came out of watching clients butcher their brands over and over and over again, wanting to do something different and then never sticking to it. And that was such a frustrating and repetitive cycle to be stuck in. When we could see the white space was there, the opportunity was there, all you have to do is reach out and take it, and you're not taking it. You're copying something that's already been done. It doesn't work. You get frustrated.
Was there a moment where you were all having a dinner and you went, okay, so what's the product going to be? Is it a shoe? Is it a makeup? Is it a top? Is it like, how many ideas were thrown around and thrashed?
We went on for about 6 months trying to work out the actual idea. We talked about supplements. I remember talking about like a coconut vodka at one point because that was the real thing at the
Gibson did that,
time.
I think.
Josh Gibson did. It wasn't until Steve, who's one of my business partners at Frank Body, who owns a couple of cafes in Melbourne, had some women come in and ask him for the leftover coffee grinds, which would happen from time to time.
Just from when they just finished the coffee,
Yeah.
just put the coffee in the bin.
Yeah. It was a good garden fertilizer. So he would always have people come in and ask for it. But these 2 women like to take it home and use it in the shower, like as a manual body scrub. He thought, oh, that's really interesting. And we did our research. We couldn't see anything online that was a retail product. So we started with ingredients in the kitchen. You can't even call it a formula. It was a recipe at that point in time. We made the first version of the original coffee scrub.
And what was it?
Almond oil, vitamin E extract, sea salt, sugar, orange extract, and coffee. So 6 ingredients.
I mean,
in total.
that sounds so good for your skin.
It was amazing. Like, you felt like a swamp monster. The shower was a disaster afterwards, but my skin had never been softer. And we were so disenfranchised by what was going on in the beauty industry. It was a lot of hyperbole, a lot of jargon that never actually then lived up to the hype. So we used this product. We put it in a brown paper bag, like as a bit of a homage to the old coffee bags. And we thought, right, this is it. How are we going to sell this thing? Like, it looks like dirt in a brown paper bag. What do you do with this? So we had the brand challenge. Steve and Alex led things in terms of starting to make the scrub. So they had, a little cement mixer called Frank the Tank that we would mix up.
It's no longer leftover coffee now. It's actually being...
Is that how Frank came about? Because the mixer was called Frank?
We called it Frank the Tank after we came up with the brand. So the brand identity stemmed from this idea of, okay, we look at this thing. It's very simple. In essence, you could go and make something like this at home. What you're paying for is convenience. We don't want to dress this up in bells and whistles. And to be part of something. We knew we could create a community. Can't dress this up in bells and whistles. We just want to be really honest and really upfront, really frank about what this is. And that idea piqued our interest, and everything flowed on so naturally from there. It's like, let's be frank about everything that the beauty industry stands for now, what we want to see it be. Let's be frank about our bodies. Let's be frank about women's interests. Let's be frank about her sexual desires, like everything that was sort of somewhat taboo and cliche and hidden behind the scenes, we wanted to bring to the forefront.
Did the industry turn on you for being so frank? Or do they celebrate you?
I think they celebrated us because it was so instantly
revered.
It was revered, and it connected with consumers straight away. And we knew that because without us even prompting them, they started rehashing the tone of voice on social, and that's how all of those.
And how were they rehashing it? What was the?
They would use the lines, or they would extend on the tone of voice that we created. Like, the voice was cheeky and irreverent and really different to anything that was quite stale. It was either stale, flowery, or scientific.
Do you know what? It came across as very sexy.
Yeah.
But not slutty. Like, which is really, you know what I mean? No, but that's a hard thing to do. It's really hard.
It's a voice that evolved over the years.
Yeah, and it's like mass consumer. Like, it made people like, I remember all the photos, like getting all scrubbed up and dirty, but yet it was never distasteful.
But give us the backstory in the sense that, like, you've got to prepare this sort of entrepreneurial, venture, you've got to create a lot of product, have it there ready to go, and then press go effectively. Or did you road test thousands first and see what the feedback was? Like, what was the process to then
actually launching the business? We settle on the brand name. We create a very basic visual identity, because for us it was just a bit of a test to see what we could do if we put the basic bits and pieces of a brand together. The voice, however, was something that we've finessed, and it was cheeky and sexy for a reason, because you were naked when you used the product. It was such a intimate relationship that you had with the customer, and I always liken it to, it made sense because you're naked using the product. I'm not trying to sell you a Chico roll with a woman like naked on the front of a car where there is just no connection.
Zero.
It's just sex selling.
Well, it's slutty. Yeah, it's
exactly.
distasteful.
That's when it's distasteful.
Yeah.
This was trying to cut through all of the BS and flowery language and limiting language that was placed on women at the time. So we knew the voice through and through. We started creating social content about 6 months before we launched, and we knew we have no money to launch this brand. We have to create an audience to sell it to.
Like a Frank is coming type thing? Or?
It was just called Frank Body. And there was we weren't trying to sell anything. We were just creating a community of people who liked the content that we were creating.
And what was that initial content rollout?
Boobs and butts, basically.
But also with people with selfies and phones, and like, it was
starting.
It was easy for people to capture content for you and build the brand.
And it was the start of Instagram. Like, it was really lo-fi, and it was all about like replicating content that you'd seen anywhere. People were just playing with the platform and trying to work out how to use it.
What a great filter that was.
So we had the audience, we had the brand. Steve and Alex made the product, but we only made a couple of hundred of them. We created a Shopify store. Everything was very simple. We were making it by hand. We were going to wheel it down in trolleys to Ozpost
so
when
you
people
sold
bought it.
200 bags to begin with?
within 30 minutes of launching.
What?
So we turned the site on.
How much were the bags?
$14.95. We put the site live. We went to the pub. I remember so distinctly sitting there with Alex eating my chicken parma. And
Which pub?
I can't remember where we were. I can just remember the
I'm so
scene.
visual. I literally,
Where are you?
yeah.
What are you eating?
I come on the journey.
Fork on the left?
Yeah, I'm like, was it a good parma?
was
You're
a
sitting
good
there at
parma.
5 o'clock. Hey, Shuey, I'm having the parma that Jess said.
I really want to remember. I'm going to text Alex after this and see if he
Where were
does. I remember having to leave my parma because we went, shit, we've sold out of product. We need to go make more and we need to go turn the site off. And we all came together and we're like, right, do we actually have something here beyond the challenge of putting a brand together and sticking to it? All of these elements coming together are really resonating with people. And that was the moment where we went, yeah, let's go. Let's try this. Let's
What was the
actually try it.
feedback like after that?
People loved it. Losing their minds for this product. The feedback was coming in, like inundating our email inbox and then also all over social. That's why we ended up with over 100,000 photos of people, peeping over the top of the scrub bag or photos of their legs.
There was probably a lot of photos coming in that you couldn't share.
Oh, there were a lot of
God, that would have been funny.
Fun time.
triple R rated photos
my
coming
God.
into the inbox.
Really frank.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of
what year
HR
was this?
management with the customer service
What
team.
year was this?
We launched in 2013. So 2013, 2014, this was all just going bananas.
Wild.
And when did Frank the Tank get put into retirement?
Frank the Tank got put into retirement within 12 months
Wow.
because we had 20 or 30 people working for us upstairs in that warehouse I mentioned before.
Packing constantly?
Constantly around the clock. So
Where'd
we
you
were
find these
running
people?
Friends.
Just
People
friends?
that worked at Steve's Cafe, people that wanted extra work
Extra
after
hours.
and we would just pay cash in hand. I shouldn't say
Well, you
that
know
out
what I
loud,
love?
but that was the deal back then.
You know what I love
Far
the deal is that we had Erin Deering in here, a few
Yes.
weeks ago, and Triangle Bikini, similar story. There's differences, but like there's that whole thing of it could be something. Oh
And
my
then it
God,
just
it is
explodes.
something. Let's go. We've got to go. And if you don't go, you miss that moment, right? If you didn't go if you've gone, okay, let's just sell a few hundred more and just see, you may have missed that window.
But see, what
Absolutely.
people don't realise at this point in time within the pod is that this has gone on to become a massive international brand.
Yeah, we're sold all over the world. We've sold 37 million products at last count. So it really
from
grew
200.
beyond those 200 we sold that night.
But before being fully bought out or partially bought out?
Partially bought out. So we have investors, Unilever Ventures and a Chinese private equity firm, and the founders still are directors and shareholders in the company. And that happened over the course of the next 11 years. And it wasn't intentional. We grew this thing and it was the hype of M&A swirling around beauty brands.
Yes.
And they were like sharks coming at us from everywhere. And we were young entrepreneurs. We didn't really know anything about raising capital. And it's probably one of the things I talk to young founders about the most now. Like if you're ever going to raise capital.
Did you
need
raise
to know
capital?
why. Unintentionally. We ended up in conversations with the biggest strategic companies and private equity firms all over the world. And for us, it was a real learn as you go type exercise. And then once we realized why we would use capital and we wanted a strategic partner to grow into retail, which was how we ended up growing into Mecca here in Australia, the first Australian beauty brand to ever do that.
So
That was the
Frank
change.
Body became the first ever product to get placed in Mecca.
From an Australian brand.
That's
yeah.
incredible.
Their
What a crazy accolade.
It was pretty cool. Their whole business model was to bring international brands to Australia exclusively. So they didn't even look at Australian brands. For us, it was about differentiating ourselves from the next crop of brands coming up through social media. And I knew we had a perception problem when people would say, oh, you're that brand from social, rather than, oh, you're that skincare brand. And I thought, I have to change this. And the founders collectively thought, we have to shift this. How do you do that beyond continuing to make good products? You partner with the people that have the most credibility in beauty in Australia, and that was Mecca. So that became the start of a relationship that we worked on for months with them.
How
And
crazy is that? Like
eventually they changed the whole model.
what you had to do to change the model to get you to where you want to be is what I'm going through mentally on how does White Fox become the most credible real estate brand in the world, where you've got to be in London, you've got to be in New York, you've got to be in Dubai. It's location based.
So you have to build that clout, and like there's
Correct.
a huge amount
And the
of
location of your product has to be on the shelves of those stores. It's location based as well.
is location
Where
based.
you're seen by your consumer
Yep.
determines how credible and successful you are.
credible by association. So there was nowhere else to do that. There's a lot of amazing retailers in Australia, but they just didn't come with that clout and that credibility that we
Plus,
wanted
you've got
from
to be
Mecca.
careful not to cheapen your brand. You don't want to go
Absolutely.
into shops that, I'm not going to say names, but like you would think of as mum and dad on the corner that's
Totally.
too easy.
Yeah. great shops that we all used. It just wasn't what we wanted in
brand.
terms of the perception for the brand. So we went into Mecca, and that took the brand to a whole new level.
Did you get into Mecca before selling or having any co-investment?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So that's the part that obviously gives you such great uplift that you were able to secure that deal with the existing founders.
It also comes at a huge risk because the capital outlay to go into a national retailer is huge.
And if you can't deliver.
Because
there's obviously ratchets within their contracts where they can also take over your product if you can't keep up.
Yeah, that's right. Like contracts with retailers are not for the faint-hearted. So that was a huge learning curve for us. And we knew that we were going to then go and do that internationally into, you know, Liberty in London, Boots in London, or all through the UK, Ulta through the US, Walmart and Target eventually through the US, all of the big department stores, Sephora through Asia, Sephora through Europe. It was just
Do you sometimes
huge.
pinch yourself that like that's where this brainchild of yours is sitting and the team?
It does feel a little bit weird. Like now I've lived with it for so long that it's normal, but if I sort of allow myself to relax and go back into the body of Jess 5 or 10 years ago, and I remember those moments going, how am I here?
But how important is it to do that? Like, because I think that's what grounds you. But by having that self-reflection, going back and going, I actually, because no matter how successful you get, you still have those moments where you don't think that you can do things again.
Self-doubt all the time.
Yeah. So do I. And you've just got to go back down. I say it to Lana all the time, who's speaking at ARIC this weekend.
Yeah.
And what I said to her is like, you're going to go back to this moment that you're so nervous about in 5, 10, 15 years time, like what I do when I spoke at ARIC in 2018. And it makes you, and it's like the cookie jar moment that David Goggins talks about, where you've got to take yourself back to these moments where you do push through and you do have these wins to kill that self-doubt of the future.
Absolutely.
Or in the current moment.
Yep.
It's like all you have to do is go back to these moments and you can pretty much get through anything.
I completely agree. And it's self-doubt is good because it serves a purpose in that it means you care. Like even though you can dream big and there's a part of you that really believes in the fact that you can bring this idea to life, self-doubt keeps you in check. Self-doubt is a great validator.
Yeah, it gives you humility.
It does. You need humility. And if you didn't give a shit, if you didn't care at all, everything is coming from ego. And it's when we're building from ego that we don't build something authentic. We can't build community around ego. So I'm a big believer in the fact that using your nervousness, your doubt, your anxiety, however it shows up and manifests for you to your advantage, because it means you care about what you're doing. And that is the ultimate strength at the end of the day. But it just takes a bit of a mindset shift.
So in this time, Frank's taking off. Frank's going bananas. Willow and Blake is still doing its thing.
Yep.
Like, tell us about that time, because you're now on a stratospheric kind of trajectory. Are you guys just going, oh my God, this is all happening very quickly? What's the mindset? Because take us through the sort of time, 2013,
well,
14,
how
15.
hard would it be to imagine a client saying, oh, hey, I need something for this product, but your other business is flying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was quite fascinating watching that Willow and Blake still got so much time.
We basically had 2 full-time jobs, and I talk about it really honestly because I don't think people are often honest about what it takes to build a business of that size.
Erin said the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm not a proponent for hustle culture and girl boss culture. I think rest is important, but I also don't think you can build a business of that size in 2 hours a day. I was lucky if I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours a day, and I would train and then I would work. Yeah, I got really burnt out. I ended up hospitalised at one point because I was having so many
You didn't get pericarditis as well, did you?
I had so many cardiac symptoms.
Same. That's what did it to me.
It was horrific. That really forced me to reassess my life. This was not in recent years. This was before the kids. I want to say, I was at Ben's wedding in WA and I ended up in hospital on that trip.
Really?
Yeah.
Just from exhaustion.
I thought I was
40 degrees as well, wasn't it?
I was in bed and I said, damn, like something is wrong. I was scared to go to sleep because I didn't know if I was going to wake up.
And plus you don't want to die in fucking Perth.
I don't want to. I was in Margaret. We're in Yallingup. It was beautiful.
Oh, it is beautiful.
It's absolutely stunning. And we went to the hospital, like this little weird local hospital, and they had me strapped up. They're like, you need to calm down your heart rate. I think it was like 160.
And you're on the ECG?
Yeah, I was on the ECG, sat there all day, and I had every conceivable test done and then worked with professionals back here in Melbourne. You
And I
know,
bet
the
they said
nighttime
it was all clear.
stress.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. And then, you know, they prescribe you calm down. I'm
It's
like,
so
thank
hard
you.
being told that.
It's frustrating because you know the only way you can fix it is to slow down, and that takes a lot of time.
Did you have the same thing with me where it was stress, but my mind actually didn't feel it?
Absolutely.
All in the body.
All physically manifested for me.
The whole same. This here is like this just won't stop.
Yep.
It's so strong.
I remember seeing you at that time and you were like a little bit overweight. You looked terrible, but you were like on here. It was at a time. It was the worst I've seen you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worst I've seen you.
But you're
But
so
the
used
body
to
broke.
showing up as like mentally, I could show up all the time. I could still get my work done, but I broke. And I had been quite a fit and active person until that time. My sleep really suffered. So that was the reality of growing the businesses. It was really, really tough, and it took its toll on everyone in its own different way. And
What are 2 things that you've implemented that are long-term exercises that you do to de-stress and keep yourself away from being the Jess of the past?
there's quite a few things. Well, Shura caught wind of the fact that my husband and I both had simultaneous midlife crises over the last year, and I've really changed my working life. But if I talk back to since then, creating boundaries, there's a lot of people, and I think it really depends on your industry, where there is an unhealthy sense of urgency. I'm very, very fast at my work, and I know that. So I don't necessarily feel if someone emails me, I have to email them back straight away. That shouldn't be my priority because I'm not in sales. My priority should be the strategic work. So create the boundaries around how and when I respond to people. Don't add to my own work plate when I don't need to. It's not instant message. I have no requirement to get back to that person right now. So for me, boundaries and communication were really important. Deleting certain apps off my phone, like Slack, does not belong on my mobile phone, so it's not there. There's no need for me to be contactable 24 hours a day. I'm not a cardiologist. I'm not saving lives. I'm selling body scrub. So you can still love what you do, but also love your personal time and your personal life and your family. So that was a huge one for me.
Access to Jess is very different.
Access to Jess different, but it takes a lot of institutional change in the business, and that was hard.
It's creating the layers.
Yeah.
Like access to me,
That's changed.
the agents can't come to me. They have a layer of a sales director before it becomes an issue for me to help resolve.
And it should be that way. I mean, how many staff do you have within all of the, or team members within the whole business?
And creators probably 130
yeah, imagine
altogether.
if 130 people were coming to you all day, every day. You couldn't do what you do, and you couldn't build an organisation that would be healthy for them. So it serves everyone to have some sort of layers within the business.
And it elevates others.
It does, because it helps them become leaders underneath you, and then eventually maybe even replace you in some capacity or take on elements of your role. So I'm a huge proponent for that. Doesn't mean you're totally inaccessible and scary. It just means that you have boundaries for yourself.
Oh, for people in
And
business,
limits.
access is going to be a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
What's another one?
Exercise. And it's really, really simple, but I was on the weird Dave Asprey biohacking train long before anyone else was. Like,
You still on those
God,
bulletproofs?
I'm not anymore. He went a little bit off the deep end for me, so I let go of him. I was that girl like wearing my blue light blocking glasses back in the office, and that became really difficult to maintain once I had my children. I'm a very, very hands-on mum. We don't have a lot of help. It's basically my husband and I and the kids. There's no help from our grandparents. We don't have nannies or anything like that. There's kinder and childcare 2 or 3 days a week.
Because they're 4 and 1?
4 and 1.
2 girls.
Yep, 2 girls, and they're absolutely beautiful. And that was it. I knew that my priority and in alignment with my values was to be as present with my kids as possible. So that meant I had to sacrifice something, because
Delete Slay.
delete it. You know,
So
there
where
are
do you
only
squeeze
so
in the
many hours in the
exercise?
day. Well, I
she's
didn't.
married to a trainer. That helps.
Yeah.
Who probably doesn't train her. It's like the painter that never has a
And
painted house.
can I tell you,
Exactly.
the guy, he made me spew. I've never spewed from a workout in my life except for with Danny.
That was how we
Maybe
met.
speed.
He was my trainer.
Yeah.
Such a cliche. And he was brilliant at what he does. And now he's got a regenerative farm. He's totally changed practices.
He's a great man.
He's a beautiful man and such a champion for me. There's only so many hours in the day, and I knew, okay, my family, my work, myself, and unfortunately myself went to the bottom of the list. I came last all the time, and that
So many mums do that.
it does. It's really not healthy, but there's also, at some point, there's just no other option. It was either be with my kids or go to the gym, and I chose to be with my kids. Now I've only just started rebuilding a gym routine, I want to say 5-6 weeks ago. And it's the first time in 5 years where I'm like, oh my God, there I am. Like there's Jess, who's not Jess a mum, who's not Jess the founder of a business, just me doing something that's for myself. So building all those self-care practices in has been incredible. I know we go to the same gym, but different locations, and that whole ecosystem that they have available there is incredible. Like I get in.
The ecosystem literally keeps you sane.
It does.
And access.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, why are you even going to that gym? And I say, because if I jump into the sauna and ice bath at home, I will have 3 kids that will love to interrupt it.
Yep.
And like you, I choose my kids.
Yep.
If they're wanting to play pickle or if they're wanting to dig a hole, which I actually won't allow because we're selling the house as of this week, it can't be wrecking the grass. Yeah. I'm with the kids.
Yep.
It's just how I am.
I'd never want to turn my kids away. Like I can't think of anything worse than saying, I can't be with you right now.
No.
So I have to sort of physically remove myself from the house to ever have that time. And that's just a handful of hours a week. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. But it was my non-negotiable. It faltered to the bottom of the list, and now I'm trying to rebuild it back up.
But also you need the kids to get to a certain age as well.
You do.
I think if you're too harsh on yourself, I think you would have more regret having a 6-pack and a bubble butt and be able to run like a 5-minute 10K.
Absolutely. And a kid that's really sad and
a kid
disconnected.
that misses mum and dad.
Yeah.
Like it's the reality. And
Absolutely.
I take my hat off that, you know, that's what you did. It is what it is.
Yeah. It's nice now to be out of that baby bubble.
How
and
good
sort
is
of
it?
have a little bit more balance in my life. So yeah, there's so many things that I would recommend. Reading, cultivating self-awareness. If you're not self-aware, you can't be a good founder. You can't be a good leader. You make really bad decisions. So finding a way, whether it's through a coach, books, meditation, self-reflection practice, anything, journaling, become self-aware.
Do you write as much as what you did?
I do now. Because last year, after I had my second child, she was about 8 weeks old, I made a really big decision not to return to my chief marketing officer role at Frank Body and to sit on the board and really change the way I work.
So board member now
Yep.
of global company. What does that look like? From a work perspective?
It's light touch in terms of we meet once a month, and I've been on the board the entire time. There's an element of governance and oversight that is always required by any board member. So ensuring that the company is trading properly. And then we make strategic decisions in terms of the direction of the company together as a board. I knew that I was ready for a new challenge. And so I wanted to take time to be with my kids. And now I'm revisiting what that next phase of my life looks like. And I've been writing a lot. I'm working on a book that's being released with Simon & Schuster next year, and I'm working on a novel, like a creative book, which is really, really fun to get back to my writing roots, writing a newsletter, and I'm in the very early stages of a new brand, which we'll probably launch next year.
So obviously Frank is a unicorn. Is there another unicorn? Would you do another unicorn?
I would build a bit more intentionally this time around because one, it's a really different time. Growing a consumer brand now is very different. 2, I'm doing this as a sole founder because I want to have more control over every decision. I loved working with my co-founders. They're some of my best friends. I just know that for this phase, I want to really own the process from beginning to end. I don't want it to become a beast that is bigger than me, but I have huge ambitions for it. So I want to grow it in a way that feels like I'm in the driver's seat at all times, which I didn't always feel like I was in my own company, which is a strange feeling to have.
Yeah.
Because you're right, like particularly in the product space, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of drop shipping. There's a lot of like the ability of everyday people just to grab a product from somewhere and say rebrand it, whether white label it or whatever, and have success. It's the idea of creating almost your own line. Like you had your own lane. Mm-hmm. No one was doing what Frank was doing, and it created something very different.
Exactly.
And I wanted to ask you, because the copycats came as well.
Oh, so many.
There was a big
of them.
one, Ariana Grande,
She
of
was
course.
huge.
So tell us about that, because you've got this brand that's growing and doing amazing things. I think she talked about it or tweeted about it or
She
something.
did. Yep.
And then a few weeks later, she's like, oh my God, I got my new.
Yes, I remember this so distinctly. We were sitting upstairs at the office.
That's quite scary.
Yeah,
someone that's
they
got
could,
that type of
flatten
reach.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you think you're done.
We
don't
thought
you?
we were done. We
Yeah.
absolutely thought we were done.
Really?
Our PR manager came upstairs and was like, have you seen Slack? And we're like, no, we've got it turned off. We're actually trying to do some work. Turn it on, have a look.
I've had it turned off for years, babe.
What's Slack?
What's Slack? I don't know.
Sorry, it's not on my phone.
Elle Japan, I think it was Elle Japan, had recorded an interview with Ariana Grande, and they said, oh, so what products are you using at the moment? Or tell us about your beauty routine. She said, I love this body scrub by Frank Body. It's vegan, it's made of coffee. She just talked about it. It was totally organic. We have no idea how she came across the product. And everything just blew up. Like the site went absolutely bananas. Then we had this amazing content that we could use and rehash.
Is this pre-Mecca?
Pre-Mecca.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing in terms of like great bargaining chip, great raising awareness of the brand in the US. And we were already working towards a particular retailer in the US. And a couple of months later, Ariana Grande coffee scrub appeared in that retailer.
What did she call it?
I think it was
She
just
should have
called
called it
Ariana.
Grande. She should have called it
Yeah.
Grande.
Grande,
Isn't that what they call
right?
like
Yeah.
coffees over
Grande
there?
Macchiato
Oh,
would
that's
have been
so
so
Grande.
good. I can't even remember the name of it. I remember the bag, and I remember it being really lackluster. And you know celebrity fragrances, how they just like slap their name on it?
I just think of like Britney Spears.
It felt like that, but a body scrub version.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel
It had
thoughtful.
nothing, yeah.
There was
it had
no soul.
It didn't make you feel anything when you were cleaning yourself.
No.
Get off me, Ariana.
If it's like get your clothes, come on. So we thought we were done for because that was the exact retailer that we were going to pitch into that had national distribution, but it was gimmicky. And really there was no thought behind the brand other than she'd like this product. Some manager who works with her has probably gone, oh, that brand's doing really well that you mentioned. Let's make your own version of it, slapdash, whack it on a shelf. That stuff never works.
If it had
If
come
anything-
early in your journey, maybe.
Maybe.
If you hadn't established yourself, yeah.
So we had a lot of other products in the range then, and we ended up launching into that retailer. And I don't think her nor any of the other copycats exist anymore.
And with Frank Body, that was just one product. How many products do you have now?
Oh God, dozens. There's dozens of products now, and that was a real differentiator.
Well, you've
for us.
eliminated key person risk, key product risk.
Exactly. I deliberately created a product a couple of years ago that I wanted to pip the original coffee scrub off the top of the list.
Were
And
you
it did.
successful in doing that?
Yeah, because I knew
what was that product?
It was another body scrub. It was a glycolic body scrub. It was just my job. I was chief marketing officer, is trend forecasting, and other than when not living in Excel spreadsheets, give the customer what they want, predict what she wants ahead of time, and constantly outdo myself.
That would have been a huge win though. Like I remember for me when I got myself down to 0 company revenue, I was like, I've done it. I've literally done it. And that was a moment I was just like, oh my God, all those people for all those years
That's
saying
all about
White
you.
Fox is Marty Fox. Like I think 2 years ago, I got down to like 0.5% of company revenue. That would have been a very similar situation it's not just the coffee.
Yeah, we're not the scrub brand anymore.
No.
We're not the Marty Fox brand
You're the
anymore.
beauty
We are
brand.
bigger than these single entities. So that was very validating. But yeah, the copycats, at the end of the day, they don't have it's a whole bunch of reasons that they don't work. Founders
Yes.
who are in it for the wrong reason.
Yes.
They're just trying to make some money. Nothing wrong with wanting to make money, but you need to have a purpose
reason.
beyond profit.
Yeah.
What's the best memory that you've got with your 5 founders? Like when you think of the 5 all together,
Yeah.
what's the best moment in your mind?
Some of the really early days, I remember us in Paris. We got an Airbnb. It was maybe year 2, and we were strategizing the future of the company. We went and we bought, big butcher's paper. We stuck it up all over the walls of this Airbnb. We walked down to the Sephora on the Champs-Elysees and we said, one day we will be in here. And we were. 2 or 3 years later, walked back into that Sephora on the Champs-Elysees and there was Frank. And I thought, oh my God, we actually did that thing that we stuck up on the butcher's paper.
When you went back and saw that, were you all together at that moment?
We weren't. I was on a solo trip. I was on a holiday and I thought, I have to get there. I will go out of my way to go and look at this. And I did. And it was incredible. But that trip, it was so formative, not only for us as a business, but for each of us as individuals to really have that self-belief in our capabilities.
But that's where I think you have to travel and you have to see what can be because you hold on to that vision.
I'm a big believer, I'm going to use that word twice, in the concept of to see is to believe, or this concept of expanders who can literally expand your thinking by showing you what is possible, even if they're not in your category. You actually have always come up a lot for me with this, Marty, because you've really pushed beyond the limits of what people would have told you is possible to do with your brand and expanded beyond that. Then that expands my own thinking, even though we work in totally different fields. That idea of seeing what people can achieve and what is possible is what keeps me going. And a lot of other people have very negative mindsets and a lot of tall poppy syndrome here in Australia.
That's Australia's biggest problem.
It is a huge problem. Whereas if people could learn to flip their mindset and look at what someone like you is doing, for example, or anyone successful in their field and go, that is now an example for me of what I can achieve if I apply that passion and insight to what I love. Granted, there are so many nuances around this in terms of access to networks and privilege and finance. We don't have a lot of time to unpack that.
And all the sliding door moments.
Sliding door moments,
they
luck,
are life-changing.
Everything that plays into it. But look at it with positivity and like it can change your life. It's incredible.
Can I ask you a question? And forgive me for asking this question, and you can answer it any way you like. But I think about it and I go, like you said before about the building of the brand and how the perception is, oh, they just did it. It was easy and they made heaps of money, right? You've now come from, humble beginnings in the west of Melbourne. You've created an forget Willow and Blake for a second. You've created an incredible brand, global brand that sold multi-million dollars worth of product. It's afforded you financial freedom. What's the one thing in terms of that it's given you, right, that you look at and go, I love that I can X? Because the money doesn't come out with that hard work. The same way Erin Deering sat here and said she had issues as well building Triangle. You guys get financial rewards, but you put in years of hard work and also, your own personal blood, sweat and tears.
Yep.
What's the thing now you're able to go, I love that I'm able to
create experiences for my family.
Yeah.
I know my personal values.
God,
through
you
and through.
answered that without a hesitation of thought.
She knew straight away.
I love that answer. That is all life is about.
It is.
Experiences with your family.
Yep.
That's the only thing that you can take to the grave.
Why am I here? I'm not here to live in endless meetings. I love my work and you can find so much purpose in your work, but I love what I do outside of work even more.
Well, your legacy
family
is your family.
Yeah, it is. And I want them to experience everything. And I was so lucky that my family, my parents really focused on creating experiences for us, like 2 teachers on teachers' salaries who took us all around the world. They put everything that they could together to create these moments and experiences for us. And now I know that I can do that with a bit more ease for my children and teach them so much about the world and open their eyes to things that I just didn't even know were possible at their age and be with them. That is the greatest privilege that having financial freedom affords me. It's not, yes, having nice things is lovely.
Yeah. I don't think I don't see you guys as materialistic people. It's more like this is a beautiful way because your legacy is actually Willow and Blake and Frank Body, but that's really your daughters.
Yeah, it is at the end of the day. And I think I can answer it with ease because I know what my personal values are. I talk about this to people too who seem founders I meet that are lost or just anyone. Like if you don't know your core values as a person, think of yourself as a brand. What do you stand for? What do you want? I know mine inside out. It's how I've made every decision in my life. That's why I'm decisive. It's why I'm fast. It's why I know what I want. It's how I got to where I am today. It's what will take me through the next 10, 20, 100 years of my life.
I think he'll say the same thing.
Yeah.
We're so similar. It's quite scary. It's crazy to think that in 2016, had if we said that we'd be sitting here now unpacking it all, we probably would have gone, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you remember sitting at my kitchen table in South Yarra when we sold Davis Avenue? Yeah. And I remember going, even with Lana, watching her grow into the woman she is as part of your company, it's been really cool to watch that journey, but I wouldn't have guessed that we'd be sitting here today having this.
Well, Lana was probably a year into. She was not even a year into being an agent.
Yeah.
It would have very.
But Lana nailed this campaign. It was seamless.
Yeah.
And I was actually quite nervous. I was like, we can't cook this one. We actually have to be really on point, and we were. But I've enjoyed this so much. It's nostalgic, but it's also I'm really proud of where we both are, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This was a lovely chat.
No, it's all good. Just before we go, quickly for people who want to, I know you're also teaching. For anyone who wants to get more out of Jess and what you do and Willow and Blake, how can they find you? How can they get you?
Willow and Blake is still alive. We're working with amazing companies. To date, we've built over $1 billion worth of brands. It's pretty crazy. So you can always find us at willowandblake.com. You can find me at jessicahatzis.com. I do some coaching and advisory work for clients that I feel like I can add value to. And yeah, I'm not pretty active on socials. I'm a bit of a dud on there. Sorry, but
You
can
won't see her
find
on
me on
Slack.
That's okay.
sure.
Hey, you know where to find it. And I can't vouch high enough. So thank you so much for
thanks
coming.
so
guys.
much,
This
Jess.
was great.